Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Plato's Republic stands as a monumental and perplexing edifice in the history of Western thought, a text whose intellectual architecture has housed, challenged, and provoked philosophers for over 2 millennia. Composed in Athens around 375 BCE, in the long shadow of the Peloponnesian War and the execution of Socrates, the dialogue transcends its immediate historical context to articulate a comprehensive vision of reality, knowledge, and the human soul. It is a work of immense ambition, seeking to define justice itself by constructing an ideal city in speech, the Callipolis, and in so doing, lays the groundwork for metaphysics, epistemology, political science, and ethics as discrete disciplines. The Republic's genesis lies in the profound crisis of Athenian identity, the collapse of its empire, and the perceived moral relativism propagated by the sophists created a vacuum of values that Socrates had dedicated his life to combating. Plato, his most devoted student, inherited this mission, transforming the Socratic quest for definitions into a systematic philosophical project. The dialogue's premise is deceptively simple: an evening conversation in the home of Cephalus at the Piraeus, where Socrates and his interlocutors embark on an inquiry into the nature and profitability of justice. In initial, conventional definitions offered by Cephalus, Polemarchus, and most forcefully by the sophist Thrasymachus, who cynically defines justice as the interest of the stronger, are systematically dismantled by the Socratic Alenchus. This initial book serves as a powerful prolegomena, demonstrating the inadequacy of popular opinion and setting the stage for the radical constructive effort to follow. The central methodological pivot of the entire work is the city-soul analogy. To discern the faint letters of justice within the individual soul, Socrates proposes they first read the larger, more visible letters inscribed in the constitution of a city. This move is a stroke of philosophical genius, allowing Plato to integrate psychology and politics into a single, unified framework. The construction of the Callipolis begins from a principle of specialization, each individual performing the one task for which they are naturally suited. This leads to the emergence of a tripartite social structure. At the base are the producers, the artisans and farmers driven by their appetites, the epitheumatikon. Above them are the auxiliaries, the warrior class, whose character is dominated by spirit or spiritedness, the thumoides. At the apex reside the guardians, the philosopher-kings, governed by reason, the logistikon. This structure of the city is a direct reflection of Plato's model of the tripartite soul. Justice, therefore, emerges as an internal harmony, a psychic and political order wherein each part performs its proper function without interfering with the others. Reason, guided by wisdom, must rule, with spirit as its ally, to hold the appetites in check. This conception of justice as an internal state of psychic health, a well-ordered soul, provides a powerful answer to Thrasymachus' challenge, suggesting that injustice is a form of disease and internal strife, inherently less profitable than the integrated wholeness of the just soul. To produce a philosopher who is capable of governing this ideal state, Plato outlines a revolutionary and exhaustive educational program, the Paideia. This curriculum is designed to turn the soul away from the flickering shadows of the sensible world toward the eternal light of the intelligible realm. The early stages involve a carefully sensed regimen of music and gymnastics to cultivate a harmonious spirit. The later, higher education for the guardians is a rigorous, decades-long ascent through the mathematical sciences: arithmetic, plane geometry, solid geometry, astronomy, and harmonics. These disciplines are valued for their capacity to train the mind in abstract thought, to draw it away from particulars toward universal principles. The pinnacle of this education is dialectic, the Socratic method refined into a systematic tool for grasping first principles and, ultimately, for apprehending the highest of all forms, the form of the good. This metaphysical foundation is the dialogue's keystone. Plato posits a dualistic reality, a visible world of fleeting appearances and an intelligible world of eternal, unchanging forms, or id. Every particular object in our world, a bed or a beautiful person, is a mere imperfect copy of the perfect form of bedness or the form of beauty. Knowledge, or episteme, pertains only to these forms, while the world of appearances can only be the object of opinion, or doxa. The structure of this reality is brilliantly illustrated through a series of powerful allegories. The simile of the sun compares the form of the good to the sun just as the sun provides the light that makes objects visible and is the cause of their generation. The form of the good illuminates all other forms, making them knowable, and is the ultimate source of their very being. The divided line offers a more technical schema, mapping the 4 levels of cognition, from imagination and belief concerning the sensible world to thought and finally pure understanding of the forms, onto 4 corresponding ontological levels. The most famous of these, the allegory of the cave, provides a dramatic narrative of the philosopher's journey. Prisoners chained in a cave mistake shadows cast on a wall for reality. The philosopher is the one who is freed, forced to turn around and ascend into the sunlight of the intelligible world, where true reality is perceived. This ascent is painful and disorienting, and the philosopher who returns to the cave to enlighten the others is met with ridicule and hostility, a poignant reflection of Socrates' own fate. This metaphysical vision has profound consequences for the city, leading to some of the Republic's most controversial proposals. The philosopher, having beheld the form of the good, is the only one fit to rule, as only they possess true knowledge of what is best for the state, to preserve the unity of the ruling class and eliminate nepotism and personal avarice. Plato advocates for the abolition of private property, and the nuclear family among the guardians. Men and women are to be educated and to rule together, a radical proposition for ancient Greece, though one justified entirely by the utility of harnessing all available talent for the state. Children are to be raised in common, their parentage unknown, ensuring that the guardian's loyalty is to the city as a whole. Art and poetry are subject to strict censorship, as most art is a mere imitation of an imitation, thrice removed from the truth of the forms, and capable of corrupting the soul by appealing to its lower, emotional parts. The dialogue concludes its political theory with a masterful account of political decay, beginning with the ideal state, the aristocracy of the wise. Plato charts a descending cycle through 4 degenerate regimes, each corresponding to a corruption in the dominant part of the soul. Democracy, the rule of honor, arises when the spirited element overtakes reason. Oligarchy, the rule of wealth, follows as the appetitive desire for riches dominates. This gives way to democracy, which Plato characterizes as an anarchic state of excessive freedom, where all appetites are treated as equal, leading to a disordered soul and a chaotic society. From the license of democracy emerges its inevitable successor tyranny, where a single, powerful appetite, personified in the tyrant, enslaves all other parts of the soul and the city. The portrait of the tyrannical man in Book 9, a soul utterly consumed by lawless desires, serves as the ultimate proof that the most unjust life is the most wretched and miserable, thus completing the argument begun in Book I. The immediate impact of the Republic was felt most directly in the institution Plato himself founded, the Academy. It functioned as a veritable laboratory for his educational and philosophical ideals, aiming to produce thinkers who could, in theory, advise cities and shape political life. The most famous real-world test of this ambition, Plato's several journeys to Syracuse to educate the young tyrant Dionysius, proved a dismal failure. The complexities of power politics were far less tractable than the arguments of a dialogue, historical irony that perhaps underscores the utopian, even pedagogical, nature of the Callipolis. The work's intellectual legacy, however, was immense and immediate. Aristotle, Plato's student for 20 years, developed his own political philosophy in his Politics as a direct and critical engagement with the Republic. He endorsed the idea of rule by the virtuous, but rejected Plato's radical communalism, arguing that the abolition of the family and private property was contrary to human nature and destructive of the very bonds of affection and responsibility that hold the city together. Aristotle's preference for a mixed constitution and a more empirical, practical approach to politics established a foundational counterpoint to Platonic idealism that has defined political theory ever since. Through the Hellenistic period and into the Roman Empire, Platonic concepts were absorbed and adapted. The Stoics' emphasis on a life lived according to a universal, rational principle, the logos, echoes the Republic's call for reason to govern the soul. The resurgence of Platonism with Plotinus in the 3rd century CE created Neoplatonism, a vast metaphysical system that placed Plato's form of the good, now called the One, at the absolute pinnacle of a hierarchical cosmos from which all reality emanates, a systematization that would profoundly shape late antique thought. This influence flowed directly into the Abrahamic religions. The Christian theologian Augustine of Hippo, in his monumental The City of God, drew heavily on Platonic dualism to frame his distinction between the earthly city of man and the heavenly city of God, a theological rendering of the sensible and intelligible worlds. The concepts of an immortal soul, a transcendent reality, and an ultimate good provided a philosophical language for Christian doctrine. Similarly, in the Islamic world, philosophers like Al-Farabi saw in the Republic a blueprint for the ideal state, the virtuous city, led by a prophet philosopher who, like the philosopher king, possesses supreme knowledge and guides the community toward perfection. The European Renaissance, spurred by Marsilio Ficino's Latin translations, rediscovered the Republic as a source of political and social inspiration. Utopian literature, from Thomas More's Utopia to Tommaso Campanella's The City of the Sun, is a testament to the enduring power of Plato's vision of a society engineered for the common good. Yet, the work's reception has become increasingly contentious in the modern era. While thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau saw echoes of the general will in the unified purpose of the Callipolis, the 20th century brought forth the most powerful critiques. Sir Karl Popper, in The Open Society and Its Enemies, famously indicted Plato as the philosophical father of totalitarianism. Popper argued that the Callipolis is a closed, static society, hostile to individualism, freedom, and critical reason, one that sacrifices the well-being of the present generation for a historicist vision of an unchanging, perfect state. This reading casts the philosopher king as a benevolent dictator and the Republic as a blueprint for authoritarianism. This powerful critique prompted a significant scholarly rejoinder, most notably from Leo Strauss and his followers. The Straussian interpretation posits that the Republic is a work of profound irony. The manifest absurdities and harshness of the Callipolis, such as the community of wives and children and the noble lie used to ground the social order, are deliberate provocations. On this view, Plato never intended the city to be a practical political program. It is a theoretical construct designed to reveal the inherent tensions between the demands of philosophy and the necessities of the city, and to expose the limits of what politics can achieve. The ideal city is so extreme precisely to show why it is impossible, thereby guiding the careful reader toward a deeper understanding of the philosopher's complex relationship to political life. In our own time, the dialogue continues to fuel debate. Feminist scholars examine the ambiguous proposal for female guardians, seeing it as both a radical step toward equality and a functionalist measure that subsumes female identity into the needs of the state. The critique of democracy resonates in an age anxious about populism and political polarization, while the warnings about tyranny feel perpetually relevant. The enduring power of the Republic lies in its inexhaustible capacity to frame the fundamental questions of human existence. What is justice? What is the ideal relationship between the individual and the state? What is the nature of reality? And how can we know it? By weaving these inquiries into a single, dramatic, and unforgettable narrative, Plato created a work that serves less as a source of final answers and more as a foundational grammar for Western philosophical discourse. It is a text that forces every generation to confront its own values, to question the foundations of its political arrangements, and to contemplate the difficult and luminous path of the soul from the dim light of the cave to the brilliant sun of the good. The Callipolis may be an impossible city, but its construction in speech remains one of humanity's most profound and enduring intellectual adventures.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.